Coming up on In the Life, the challenges of finding an effective HIV vaccine.
The virus is a moving target, genetically and biochemically.
A conversation with Kenneth Cole and Regan Hofmann.
As long as I make HIV something that happens to other people, I don't have to worry about it.
Today, the power of stigma is astounding.
And an update on the success of the online series, HIV Is Still a Big Deal.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Wineland, Otto Haas Charitable Trust No. 2, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.
Since the first causes of AIDS were identified in 1981, over 20 million people have died from the disease, and an estimated 14,000 people are infected each day. Tonight on In the Life, documenting the people and the issues shaping the gay experience. HIV, how close are we to finding a vaccine? Can we destigmatize the virus? And how successful are prevention efforts? Throughout history, no viral disease has been cured without a vaccine, and HIV/AIDS is no exception. Though we have the tools for living with HIV, education, behavior change, and treatment, the development of an HIV vaccine remains the only hope for eradicating the virus. Finding this magic bullet, however, has proven to be harder than anyone ever imagined.
The probable cause of AIDS has been found. We also believe that the new process will enable us to develop a vaccine to prevent AIDS in the future. We hope to have such a vaccine ready for testing in approximately 2 years.
The highest high was when we discovered the virus and said, now we have something to work with.
It was assumed that this virus would succumb to our tools.
Until we found out how bloody complicated HIV is.
The virus is just an absolute catastrophe when it comes to making a vaccine.
The virus is a moving target, genetically and biochemically. This virus has the ability to change its genetic makeup in a way that's perhaps unprecedented in terms of any virus that we've ever encountered.
Understanding the basic science of HIV is not the only challenge.
In a lot of diseases, you look for models in animals to predict things that might happen in humans. It's the quickest way to develop a product. Unfortunately, with HIV, there isn't a good model.
No animal gets HIV the way we do.
And at the end of the day, the only animal that can really tell us if a vaccine works is the human animal. And that means you've got to run very expensive trials.
As the number of HIV-infected escalated to pandemic proportions, treatment presented the first major breakthrough, and antiretrovirals took center stage.
If there is one glowing, overwhelming success story in HIV research, is the development of highly, highly effective therapies.
Even with antiretroviral therapy, there is an urgent need for a vaccine.
We're never going to control the worldwide epidemic with antiretroviral therapy. It's just not going to happen, given where the epidemic is and given how it spreads. It won't work. We need a vaccine.
For years, activists have demanded treatments, but these voices have been noticeably absent when demanding a vaccine.
When we look back on 28 years of activism around HIV and AIDS, it was driven by people who were dying. Now with prevention, We don't see that. Who needs an AIDS vaccine? Everybody does. But everybody's not a constituency in the way that people living with any disease are for their disease. Prevention relies on all of us to figure out that preventive health and AIDS vaccines can alter the course of the world in public health. And that's easy to say, hard to create movements around.
If your only sense of satisfaction would come for getting a vaccine that worked, it would be very depressing. It's very hard. It requires a perpetual sense of optimism and a perpetual sense of hope.
A major setback came in 2007 when the results of a trial conducted by Merck produced a shocking result. Not only did the vaccine fail, but it may have actually increased HIV susceptibility in trial participants.
It was a result that truly came out of left field.
The idea that the actual administration of the vaccine could put somebody at increased risk for infection was devastating.
Many of us were really grappling with that question. Is it possible that the system is rigged in a way that we can't succeed?
That was a reality check for this field, mired in controversy, mired in competitiveness, that said, you know what, we've got to do this in a different way, because the way we're doing it now is not getting us where we need to be.
Scientists decided to return to basic research in an attempt to understand this formidable enemy.
I think it's certainly a very strong step in the right direction, going back to basics and try and identify things that have a scientific basis to make you believe it might work.
As scientists went back to the drawing board, a trial launched in Thailand in 2003 combined two vaccines, one to prime the immune system and another to boost it.
16,400 Thai men and women are in this trial, so it's a huge undertaking. And there were a number of scientists in 2003 and 2004 who said this trial should not take place because it can't possibly work. This is a stupid idea. We'll have better vaccines in the future.
This trial will be recognized as a testament to Thailand's ability to successfully execute.
When the results were released on September 24, 2009, the research community was stunned by the findings.
After 20 years, there is finally hope of finding an effective AIDS vaccine. A new vaccine has cut the risk of becoming infected with HIV by more than 31%.
And that brought us one step closer to an HIV vaccine.
We can go in and look at what happened in the people who were protected, how are they protected, and what are the immune responses that are the signatures of that protection. And then we can begin to incorporate those signatures into our planning.
Earlier that same month, the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative released a report that scientists had discovered two potent neutralizing antibodies that are proven to be effective in disarming multiple strains of the virus.
For the first time in a decade, we've got new targets. We've got new ways to look at the virus and at vaccine approaches to address the virus.
We can be much more directed and focused in terms of how to proceed with vaccine development.
Even though this news is cause for celebration, scientists know all too well to view these results with caution.
I've been in the field too long to jump up and down over anything. Right.
Is this a vaccine? No. Can we protect people with it? No. I do know with certainty that this is not the end of the road.
Even if we get an HIV vaccine, I don't see it being a freestanding preventive measure. I think it's going to be part of a broader, comprehensive strategy.
We're still going to have to deal with all of the educational issues, and we're still going to have to deal with many of the social and economic consequences of the disease.
Yes, we need a vaccine, but the stigma doesn't stop with the vaccine. Criminalization of people's behavior doesn't stop with the vaccine. So yes, we need all of these new prevention tools, including especially an AIDS vaccine. But we have to remember that we need to be addressing the root causes of this epidemic, which go far beyond basic science.
Despite challenges, these recent developments have brought renewed energy and hope to many scientists working to find an effective vaccine.
It's as if you were driving along on a country road, at night with your headlights off, and suddenly somebody gave you a headlight and you could shine lights down the road. It really makes the way forward a lot easier.
That's what keeps me going every day, is we have to try. And even if it's not in my lifetime, I know my contribution to the effort isn't zero.
I desperately want to see one in my lifetime. I don't know that I will. I know that we will be closer to having better vaccines and better vaccines in clinical trials. Will we have one in my lifetime? It all depends on how long I live.
Proverbial shoes.
Kenneth Cole, fashion designer, chairman of the board of the Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and a social marketing pioneer since the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, discusses the stigma surrounding HIV with Regan Hofmann, editor-in-chief of POZ magazine, and the author of I Have Something to Tell You, a memoir which chronicles her life upon discovering she was HIV positive.
It's been 4 years almost since I told the world that I was living with HIV. And I think that the stigma around HIV is something that a lot of people can relate to, because a lot of people are dealing with something themselves, even if it's not HIV. And people tell me the most extraordinary things. And I don't know whether that's because they feel like if I can say HIV, they can say anything, or whether they're trying to commiserate and make me feel better, or sort of in this very compassionate quid pro quo, have me know something about them since I've shared my secret with them.
It's amazing. People today, the power of stigma is astounding today in this day and age. 25 years later into the virus, and people think, well, we've gotten beyond that. But your wife's example is, in fact, the case that we haven't. But there are certain courageous individuals who have enabled us to come pretty far, but we are so far from beyond that.
It's amazing, you know, people say to me, stigma is no longer a problem. And I think that people know how you get HIV and how you don't. They know you can hug someone and kiss someone and drink out of their soda maybe, but it's almost like we've become politically correct about it, and people know that they should say that they're not afraid of HIV or that it's okay that someone's positive. But deep inside, I think people have still this big aversion to it. As long as I make HIV something that happens to other people, I don't have to worry about it. As long as it's somebody else's disease, I can just, you know, not have to change my behavior in the bedroom. I don't have to embarrass myself by going to buy condoms in a drugstore. I think that even the stigma pervades into the medical community. I was in the hospital a year ago for a staph infection, and I requested some additional towels and paper, and the nurse stood at my doorway and threw them over my head into my room. She was afraid to come into my room. And people say to me, oh, the stigma's better. You know, stigma's killing people. It's absolutely killing people. It's preventing people from getting tested. It's preventing people from going to the doctor and from telling their families. And, you know, you've done so much since the very beginning of your career to fight stigma on a lot of issues, including HIV/AIDS.
So it's interesting because in 1985, did our first national ad campaign talking about the fact that nobody was talking about HIV. In effect, it was about stigma.
What was the line again?
It was for the future of our children. And
Right.
we had beautiful women and we had children who nobody, in effect, felt offended by.
Right.
And then years later, we did a campaign, we all have AIDS. If anyone's infected, essentially the message was, if anyone's infected, we're all affected and we're all living with the virus, some of us medically, some of us socially. But just before the campaign launched, it was, we all have AIDS. Individual members who were in the campaign who were photographed next to each other, such as Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu and Elton John and Elizabeth Taylor, people, very iconic individuals who have given so much of their identity and their resources over the years to talk about the virus. We reached out to several of these people, and we asked if they would agree several days in advance of the campaign to wear a shirt, be seen publicly with the message, I have AIDS. Nobody wanted to do it.
It's amazing. So they
Petrified. And these were advocates. These are people who've committed so many of their public, their persona to this message. They didn't want to go first. They didn't want the tabloids to get a hold of that message. So here we are, and me, less so than you a bigger person than I, still to this day have made compromises because of the power and the devastation of stigma.
Which is why I asked you to be on our cover, and you did. And it's so powerful when people who are affected come together with people who are infected and, blur those lines and take the stigma away. I think the strangest thing for me when I was asked to come to POZ magazine was I felt like I really wasn't the face of HIV. And I looked at the numbers and I thought, okay, am I some fringe statistic? What right do I have to be talking about HIV as if I'm some representative, some emissary from the community? And since being at the magazine and just, daily on the website, which I have to spell because everyone thinks when I say that I work for POZ, they think that I work for a magazine about cats and dogs. So it's POZ. And it means, HIV positive and positive in mindset. And I see all these people and I realize that it's everybody, The disease has no clue. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't know whether you're gay or straight or bisexual or black or white or young or old, or it has no clue. It's a biological agent. I found, and I would love to know what you think, is it possible to destigmatize HIV?
Well, it takes people like Regan, and it takes people to tell their story. And it takes, by the way, I have something to tell you.
What is that?
This is Regan Hofmann's new book, and it's her story. It's Regan talking about how difficult it was for her coming to terms with the fact that she had the virus and then coming to terms with addressing it publicly. So, and it's the courage that you had in doing what you did, and others that make it easier for other people to say, well, they're pretty normal. And in fact, it could happen to anybody.
You call me brave. What you do is so brave because on top of using your Kenneth Cole ad campaigns to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS, you also are the chairman of the board of this very powerful organization dedicated to research for AIDS. So how did that come to pass?
I did my AIDS campaign in 1985, and what we did felt bigger than what it was in the ordinary course. And it wasn't, we were saying, in effect, it wasn't what you stood for was maybe even more important than what you stood in. Mm-hmm. And that then to be aware was maybe even more important than what you wear. And that, I think it culturally changed the nature of our business. It changed me personally in a profound way. And I was asked to join the board of ANFAR in '87. And then they asked me to step up and be the vice chairman, then chairman 4 years ago. And what ANFAR does is really important. And stigma is very powerful. But at the end of the day, a cure will only come from research.
Right.
That's what ANFAR does.
Have you always been a rule breaker? How do you think about this in your head? I mean, you're breaking the rules to do good. So.
But I've always believed that usually the best solution is the most creative one. Mm-hmm. If we could creatively find a way to approach this crises without a sense of boundaries and do whatever one thinks they can do regardless of what they think they should do, that we can continue at ANFAR to make extraordinary progress. Any regrets? Would you have done it differently? Would you have come out sooner? Would you have written the book earlier? Would you have...
If I knew I was going to be sitting here today with you, no, I think I suffered a lot longer than I needed to. And I think that's why I wanted to write the book, because I know there are a lot of people out there suffering and isolated, and they can go to POZ.com and they can connect with the community. And we have 85,000 people dating online on POZ.com. And they can do it privately, they can do it openly in the forums. The world is there for them, and there's a humongous community of people with HIV and people affected by it who will support them. And no one, thank God, in this age of technology has to be really isolated. I think that's my only regret, that I didn't find the courage sooner.
What's next?
What's next? I'm going to write a book about my dating life. No, I'm not sure. Like you, I'm going to work until I die to try to solve this sucker, I believe that it's possible to destigmatize HIV. I guess what's next is just keeping on until we resolve it.
A year after we featured HIV Is Still a Big Deal, a series of online HIV prevention films produced by the Public Health Solutions and NYU, we take a fresh look at the success of this series. Thanks to a partnership with Manhunt, an online dating and social networking site for gay men, the series has become an internationally effective intervention tool.
Last year, when I was here to talk to you about the project, we had only recently launched our website, HIV Is Still a Big Deal, and a lot has happened since then. All 3 of our videos are now online and also on YouTube, and we've had over 100,000 views in the past year.
Partnerships between online companies and HIV researchers are absolutely critical for this work to be good.
Manhunt.net is one of the most popular websites in the world for men looking to meet other men. On December 1st, we sent a broadcast email out to all of our English-speaking members, alerting them of the HIV Big Deal videos. Of those million members or so, about 220,000 opened the email and went on to look at the videos. And the response was quite great.
I became HIV positive 3 years ago, and it changed my life. I'm very impressed to see you take a proactive approach to highlighting HIV.
This was the first film that I saw an HIV positive person actually defending themselves and not being made out to be a villain.
I've recently gotten tested for the first time, and it was a big deal. Now that I've seen these videos, I know I have a responsibility to take care of my health.
One of the challenges in doing HIV prevention research is you've got to be developing programs that people are interested in. HIV is a big deal really gets people to think.
Oh my God.
It's a realistic portrayal without buying into stereotypes or without over-dramatizing.
Josh, what is going on? Mom, I'm fine. I'm just getting tested to make sure that I'm all right, but I'm sure that I'm not positive.
It walks that line between being entertaining and interesting, but also really having a very strong and clear message.
Many people have said to me, are you sure it's okay to be working with a major hookup site like Manhunt? And it does seem kind of odd, but you might as well go where the men are. They offered us a prime piece of real estate on the site, and we actually recruited 1,000 men to participate in our evaluation, in the first evaluation that we did. And this is very unusual.
There's no denying that Manhunt plays a really important role in gay men's sexual health and sexual culture right now. And to deny that, I think, does a real disservice to people who are doing HIV prevention.
We want members to go to our site and meet other individuals and have a good time, and we want them healthy.
When they moved into South America and Mexico, they were very interested in translating the videos into Spanish because they were already demonstrated to be effective.
You know damn well you had more than a few drinks.
We had our video editor place the Spanish and Portuguese subtitles onto the actual 2 videos. And we put that up a couple months ago, and it's been viewed by about 20,000 men.
Most of the HIV prevention programs that are online are in English only. We've had hits from, I think it's 152 countries, so that the word gets out there. I mean, when something is online, there are no geographic boundaries. And we finally have just published the evaluation of the impact of the first video on changes in behavior, and found that after men watched the video 3 months later, they were about 3 times more likely to disclose their HIV status to their partners. About 120 of them were tested after watching the video, and 17 of them, 14%, found out that they were positive.
For a program of 9 minutes in length, to have that type of effect, I think is really important and really suggests that more efforts should be put into video-based programming for HIV prevention. Now, after 25 years of HIV, just talking about condoms isn't enough. We need to take it to the next level. So I wish that really everybody who is committed to taking care of HIV in our community was more accepting of these new and creative approaches, because I think they're really the future of HIV prevention.
Thank you for watching In the Life. To learn more about the issues in tonight's stories and how they affect you, visit our website at inthelifetv.org. You can also watch extended interviews, sign up for monthly airdate alerts, and download past episodes 24/7.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Wineland, Otto Haas Charitable Trust No. 2, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.